Okay, I have a different question I want to ask you. We've talked a lot, and I just now realized this, that you talked about when you lived with your grandparents when your father was missing, or when he was a prisoner of war, right? Prisoner of war, right? Or missing in action? Missing.
My father was surrounded, and there was no way for him to send a note to my grandparents to tell them that he is alive and well.
Okay, what we never, I don't think you ever mentioned, where was your mother when you were living with your grandparents and your father was gone?
Very good question.
Yeah, where was your mother? I don't remember any of anything about your mother.
My mother was a wonderful, vivacious, beautiful 16-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
She was evacuated.
For a moment, so your parents, did her parents like that union of your mother and father? Were they good with that? Was he acceptable to them?
Yes, they were, but the thing is that my grandmother on my mom's side and my grandmother on my father's side are cousins.
Ah.
So my father and my mom, they were kind of second cousins.
I didn't know this.
So now you do.
No, I do. And I know you, Aaron.
And the thing
I've learned so much today.
And the thing is that my mom's father was a broadcaster, and he has a voice very similar to this famous broadcaster of American television. What's his name? It's just escapes me. And my grandfather used to work on the Ukrainian radio as a broadcaster. He had a beautiful voice.
That's your mother's father?
Yeah. Was always elegantly dressed and blah, blah, blah. My grandmother on my mom's side, who is the sister of my grandmother on my father's side, she was a manager of the kindergarten. And so my mom, since she was a kid, she always wanted to become a concert piano player. That's all she wanted. She wanted to sit at the piano and recite some beautiful music. That's what she wanted. When the war started, there was the time to make a decision. And there was no time or place for a decision. You either go or you perish. So they pack my mom of what they could master, and they left to the town called Semipalatinsk, which is Kazakhstan area, ways east in the boonies. 4 years later, when the war was over and they had a chance to come back home, they came to their apartment and it was totally empty, nothing. Her piano was gone, everything was gone. And when you in that kind of a profession, when you a good player, there is no coming back, because you have to practice 6 to 8 hours a day to be a pro. And my mom realized she wouldn't be able to do it, so she went, got herself in the university, became an engineer technologist, went to work for a factory. Then she met my father, they got married, I was born.
Okay. And your father was, so you were a baby when he went in the service? Or he was in the service for a long time?
No, my father was in the service when he didn't even see my mom yet.
Yeah, okay. Right, I think you said he was 18 and he enlisted. He was?
No. My father was able to finish university.
Okay.
And he, as soon as the war started, he volunteered.
Right.
So he met my mom at the party, family gathering. And he remembered my mom when she was just a little pimple, and all of a sudden she's beautiful. And he started to date her, and the first fiasco of the date was very funny. He came to her apartment, and she made a stack of pancakes.
She wasn't living by herself, was she?
No, she
She was
lived
with her
the
parents, right? Okay.
And she made, in the communal apartment, and she made some pancake. And my father made a role like a good actor to start eating the pancake. And he said, what a wonderful thing. And then when he left, she picked up a piece and
But he ate it,
oh yeah.
and he liked it, or he said he did anyway.
I don't think she had any choice.
Yeah, she was cute.
Yeah.
She was a pretty
She
lady.
was very pretty. And I have a photograph of my mom. So she was a knockout. So eventually they got married and I was born.
Okay, and then he was in the military when you were born.
No, she was already out.
He was
One
already-
thing my father knew, he didn't want to go into military.
Okay, so there was a time. I've lost some of your life here. So you were living with your grandparents while your father was missing. They didn't know where he was.
No. I was not living with my grandparents when my father was missing because I was not born.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, when was your grandfather drinking? When did you live with you lived with your grandparents as a child, didn't you?
Oh, I was not living with my grandparents. I was raised by my grandparents.
And where was your mother? That's what I want to know. That's where I'm lost. You never said that. So where was your mother?
My mom was living in the same apartment, and
She lived with your grandparents also.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we had grandparents. We had a bedroom with a big curtains. That's where my parents slept.
Okay.
And I slept in a little cot.
Okay.
And then, and my mom and my father were working all the time.
Okay, now I remember this. Okay. And you were there with your grandparents, and your parents would come home on the weekend. That's what you told me the other day, I remember.
Yeah, that's why I like to be with my grandparents, and I didn't like to have my parents there because I had two disciplinarians in addition, which I didn't really like much.
So there were 4 of them.
Yeah.
And that's why when your grandfather was drinking, which he started drinking because he thought his son was gone forever, and you were living in their house, right, in an apartment with them, and that's why your grandmother had access to you to go find your grandfather and bring him home.
Every day.
Every day. Okay. Okay, good. I feel better now. I was lost there. You know, the errand thing tossed me.
It was
Okay, now
very
it all
simple.
makes sense. Okay, now it all makes sense.
When my grandmother wanted to get a hold of my grandfather,
Yes.
I was a telephone line of communication. She
Yeah.
would just go fetch your grandfather. And I would go and I knew all the hideouts, all the drinking buddies. And sometimes they would have mercy on me. I would come and I was like this. And they would look at me and they would not even tell me. One of them was no, Grandpa, Grandma wants you home. And he would think about it and he said, okay. He didn't say okay, he said, хорошо. And he would just put his hand on my shoulder and then just pull himself and we would go on the street. And then he would start yelling at my grandmother that she was not devoted wife and stuff, some nonsense. And then next morning, she would fetch him breakfast. And she would say to him, do you remember what you said yesterday? And shippers said, not a word.
Trunks are still the same. Trunks are still the same. Looks like we're going to have some swimmers over here.
Oh,